Hey, it's Dave Isaacs with you, and today we're going to do a blues lesson taking a look at Jimmy Smith's classic instrumental Back at the Chicken Shack in the key of F. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. We're playing a simple 12-bar shuffle in the key of F. So that means our primary chords are the 1-chord F, the 4-chord B flat. We're working off the 6th position here, an E-shaped bar chord. And then the 5-chord C, also working off an E-shaped bar chord in the 8th position. And we have a simple riff in primarily double stops and with a few grace note hammer-ons. So to start with, we're working off an F major chord down here, and I'm using a 4-note formation. So this is something you may recognize as a simple F chord. It might be the way that you play an F chord, but it is derived from the big 6-note E-shape chord. E-shape because if we take an E and go up a half step, lay a bar across all 6 strings, we get an F chord, but the formation here under the fingers still looks like an E. So in any case, we're using this fingering of the ring finger here on fret 3 of string 4, middle finger on fret 2 of string 3, and the index laying flat across the 1st fret. I'm covering the first 3 strings. It's just more comfortable for my hand to let that bar lay all the way across to the 3rd string. I find that it actually is more work and takes more pressure for the bar to just cover 2 strings. So even though the middle finger is sounding the 2nd fret here, the index can still sit here on fret 1. It doesn't change the sound because we're hearing the A natural here on fret 2. But as I said, my hand lays more naturally this way, and yours may as well. It's really a question of what part of the fingertip sits on the strings. To play a clean bar, you really want as close to a flat surface as you can get. So in my case, playing this chord, it's between the fingertip and the 1st joint. And I'm rotated a little bit to the left, so the left side of my fingertip is laying across those 3 strings. I am applying a little bit of pressure, but not as much as you might think, because there's a certain amount of natural leverage that comes from this position. If you just hold your fretting hand out in front of you and rest your thumb on the side of your fingers, you'll feel that. There's a difference between the amount of pressure and natural leverage you have here and the amount you do if you touch your thumb to the fingertip. That's actually less. The other reason we do want this bar, though, is that if we do, we have access to this A flat or G sharp. Let's call it a G sharp because it's really sort of a sharp 2. And we're going to play a hammer-on from fret 1 to fret 2, the G sharp to the A. If you think of it as an A flat, then it's the minor 3rd going to the major 3rd. Here in this chord, we have root, 3rd, 5th, and octave. And it's very common in the blues to mix minor and major 3rds, minor and major sounds. So what we're doing then is playing the root note down here, holding the bar and playing a double stop, so I'm striking the 3rd and 2nd strings together, single pick stroke, and hammering the middle finger down on the 2nd fret. this may require a little bit of pressure from your left hand, but it shouldn't be from your fretting hand, but it shouldn't be too much. So we've just got the root of the chord and then hammering into the third and the fifth. Now we're going to walk up. The index finger goes to fret 3 and again plays a 3-string bar because I want to cover the third and the second strings. I'm not going to strike the first string right now, but it's there under the bar, number 1, in the event that I want it, and number 2, just because it's most natural to do it that way. Obviously, it'd be kind of tricky to just bend back and cover only these 2. That's effort that we don't need. So from here to the 3rd fret. Now, this is a piece of a B flat chord, but we're not really looking at it that way. It's a melodic move within the F from the 5th of the scale to the 6th of the scale, and it simply harmonized the 3rd below by the B flat. So this sound becomes, and that becomes even clearer when we continue, because I'm going to plant my middle and ring fingers on frets 5 and 4 of the 3rd and 2nd strings. Now this actually gives us an implied F7, because the C here on fret 5 of the G string is the 5th of the F chord. It duplicates this C note here on the 2nd string. That's the 5th, and then the middle finger note fret 4 of the B string is an E flat. That would be the 7th of an F7 arpeggio. What we're doing is this. It sounds like any number of boogie-woogie figures you've ever heard. Except we're playing it in double stops. And then coming back. When I return, I'm jumping to my ring finger, playing the bar this way, so I can set up the index to get this hammer on. And notice also, slide from a fret below into this double stop here. So I'm actually landing with middle and ring on frets 4 and 3 and then gliding into 5 and 4. The timing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, shift. So notice I shift up on the way up, and I shift down on the way down. The tricky part may be to maintain the pressure on the bar, but recognize that if you grip too hard, you're actually going to make it harder to reach these fingers. We need to be able to come on and off the bar. So I can't stress enough this idea of finding your balance, the place where you have maximum leverage without having to use extreme effort to hold those strings down. 2, 3. Now we're in a 12-bar blues, so that's our 2 repetitions of the 1 chord figure. Now we move to the 4 chord B flat. We're going to take this exact same figure up to fret 6 and play an identical pattern, but we're starting with the ring finger on the 8th fret. That's the root note of the B flat chord. That's a B flat. And you'll see that the fingering is exactly the same. So I'm on frets 8, 7, and 6. Jump to a bar on 8. Double stop on 10 and 9. Shift back to 8. Hammer from 6 to 7. And then back to the first 3 frets. Now, the turnaround figure uses the same chord formation, but the lick is slightly different. We're going to go up to a C chord. It's this exact same shape, but up here on frets 8, 9, and 10. This is a really useful form. You can use this in all kinds of settings. It's a little cleaner and brighter than doing the entire 6-note chord. And so when you want a little more bite, it works really nicely. So here's our turnaround lick. Same idea, we're going to start from the D string note. This is a C on fret 10. Do the hammer on into the major thirds. This is now from fret 8 to 9. But then a chromatic. So it's hammer from 8 to 9. Now on the G string, 10, 11, and then 8 on the B string, back to the ring finger on the D string, fret 10. Middle, ring, pinky, and back to ring. And now we do the identical lick, 2 frets lower on B flat. But just this far. So, from C, but now we jump. This is landing from here. Index finger jumps over, and I'm using the index down here as well. 3rd fret of the D string to play this F, which is in the B flat chord, so it fits the underlying harmony. And then using middle and ring to land on frets 5 and 4 of the G and B strings, setting up the same double stops we were using, but this time descending down to a bar, shift down into our hammer-on minor third to major third. So, from up here, frets 8, 9, 10 on the C, and then 6, 7, 8 on the B flat, jump, and then you might also, which is in between the double stops, adding in this F note again. So here's the F on the D string, double stop, frets 5 and 4, back to the index finger F, flatten out to get B flat and D, 3rd fret, and then if you want to put in that little double stop here on the 1st fret, you can. You could do this all with the pick. Now, if you ever played hybrid style pick and fingers, that works very nicely for this. I do this a lot, actually. I'm keeping my middle and ring fingers in my picking hand curled and ready on these strings. So when I strike the D string with the pick, these fingers are already sitting on the G and B strings. I'm prepared to pluck, and then I don't have to jump back and forth with the pick. I can go pick, fingers, pick, fingers. It gives a little more pop. That's a technique you hear a lot in country. It's very much a Telecaster kind of thing, but it works on any guitar, really. It sounds good. Just changes up the attack. I like the cleanness of it. You could do all the double stops like that. In this case, striking the 3rd string with the pick and the 2nd string with my middle finger. Notice that on the way down here, you don't have to use the bar to play the 3rd fret notes. You could switch to ring and pinky. Shift to here. Whatever feels more natural to you. I do use the pick and fingers technique a lot. It's worth exploring, and this is a good tune to try it on because it's not real quick, fairly repetitive, and you're plucking the same strings each time you do use the fingers. Here we are with the track. You're going to hear it through. There's 3 choruses in the backing track, so what I'm going to do is add a little variation. I did this the first time through on the last one, where sometimes I'm hitting 3 strings, implying, or even actually hitting, I'm not hitting it hard, because I still want to hear the melody. If I make too much out of this note, it hides the melody. But it harmonizes. This can be nice. If I put my pinky down here, we get sort of a D7 shape. Pinky on the first string. So I'm not really emphasizing, because we don't want to cover, but it adds some flavor on the last repetition. So here we go. 1, 2. And there you have it. That's Jimmy Smith's Back at the Chicken Shack. And Jimmy Smith, of course, the great jazz organist. This is from an album called Back at the Chicken Shack. It's got Kenny Burrell on guitar. It's absolutely a fantastic record. And it's a great entry point into the jazz vocabulary if you're a blues player that's interested in exploring some of these kinds of sounds. The tune itself, like I said, basically just a shuffle in F. You may not be used to playing in F a whole lot, so this is a good opportunity to get you started. The backing track is linked in the description down below, and you can also work with improvising in F using any minor pentatonic or blues fingerings that you happen to know. In the key of F, just go into the F position. If you're familiar with this rudimentary one, you can start down here. That's a whole other lesson in itself. There are other blues improv lessons on my channel, and there will be more to follow. So if you don't subscribe, please do. I'm Dave Isaacs. Thanks for watching.